Matt Murdock may have broken the siege of Hell's Kitchen, but the real battle is only beginning. All this and more on the pages of Daredevil issue number 21. Let's hop on in together and find out what happens next. So then, as we join the comic, we're still in the aftermath of what people would eventually end up calling the Battle of Hell's Kitchen, which is an interesting title considering how many massive battles have probably been had there over the years. Daredevil, after going away and then coming back just when the city needed him the most, has further shocked the crowds by saying he's turning himself in for the murder that he committed at the beginning of this newest arc. Kingpin, the mayor, couldn't be happier, saying, yeah, totally, lock him up, I'm the real hero of the day, please send this guy away and further my anti-superhero agenda that I've been pushing since all of this began. The only problem is the cops don't want to lock Daredevil up. They fought beside him, they were saved by him, and so they're not so quick to turn on him. They also have bigger fish to fry currently with Izzy Libra and the Owl. Turns out before her son was killed by Owlsley, she actually stuck a recorder on him, meaning that with no actual work of their own, the cops might actually have everything they need to take down Owlsley and hopefully bring back a little order to the streets of Hell's Kitchen. Now, wouldn't you know it, actually being seen on the streets fighting back supervillains with his bare hands has done a ton for Wilson Fisk's image in the media. Wesley thinks he'll be able to sweep re-election, that is, of course, if the Stormwind twins, the people behind the attack on Hell's Kitchen, actually let him run. In fact, they seem to be tugging on Kingpin's leash harder than ever now. They even threatened to go after the newly revealed Typhoid Mary. Granted, if they knew the first thing about Mary, they would know that going after her is always a bad choice. Also, I'm sure ZDARSKY didn't mean this to be so topical, but the idea of Kingpin, a once-hated and controversial politician, rolling up his sleeves and actually getting involved in helping people on the streets actually kind of ends up feeling kind of topical when compared to a lot of other politicians in other cities. Rob Ford, Como. In the end, Daredevil says that he'll only allow Detective Cole North to take him back to the station. After all, he's a guy whose life story pretty much mirrors Matt in a lot of important ways. He's a man who truly does believe in justice, believe in right and wrong, even when it ends up hurting him over and over again. Foggy Nelson ends up meeting them off at the pass and trying to talk Matt out of what he's doing. Foggy not seeming to remember what we as the reader remembers, and that is this isn't actually the first time Daredevil has been outed and threatened to be put on trial, but it will end up causing a lot of trouble for the people who know him. This is also where the book ends up taking another super clever turn. You'll recall back in the Charles Soule era of Daredevil, Matt had actually helped pass a new law that made it so superheroes could actually take the stand and be tried as their superhero identity. Because of that, Matt doesn't plan to turn himself, and he plans to turn Daredevil in and have him stand trial for what went wrong. Of course, putting on the costume again has caught the ire of Spider-Man, who basically acted as moral arbiter for the superhero community and told Matt that if he ever put the costume on again, he'd have Spider-Man to deal with. This actually ends up being a truly hilarious scene as Spider-Man is trying to lay down the law and trying to be a little threatening with Daredevil, only for him to actively get changed in front of Peter. Spidey's gonna let this one slide for a minute, but assuredly if Matt steps out of line or if this plan doesn't work, then they're gonna have words once more. The hardest part is still yet to come. Daredevil has to present himself before the district attorney, aka the man he totally worked for on other cases. A man who is now being pressured by the rest of the city to hang someone for the crimes in Hell's Kitchen, even though most of the supervillains ended up escaping. A man who still very much demands that if he is going to continue on with this dog and pony show, that Daredevil need to at least reveal himself to him, and he does, which unfortunately brings his entire world crashing down around him. The stakes are now higher than they've ever been, not just for Matt Murdock, not just for Daredevil, but indeed the entire New York legal system. If people find out who's under the red mask, that he was a lawyer and he worked all these important cases, all of those could potentially end up getting thrown out. But that's just a bridge they're all gonna have to cross as they get there, as the new trial of Daredevil begins. And so that was Daredevil issue number 21, everybody, and overall I got a real feeling of the beginning of Act 2 with this story. And if you thought it was crazy before, if you thought it was adult and mature and slow burn, clearly we ain't seen nothing yet. I appreciate ZDARSKY for basically putting his cards on the table and saying, look, I know stories like this have been told before with Daredevil, but I promise mine is going to be different. We're going to be exploring different stuff and going in new, fresh directions. From a continuity standpoint, too, I also got to take my hat off and really appreciate ZDARSKY for building this new story on top of something Charles Soule created in his run, particularly for Daredevil. Overall, I think I'd be very comfortable giving this one a 9 out of 10. Daredevil continues to be one of the best written, best drawn, best paced books on the shelf right now, and if you're not reading it, you're truly doing yourself a disservice.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.